The following is an account that was published in a November 1873 publication of the Sailor's Magazine and Seaman's Friend, which describes an incident that occurred on board the Cunard steamship Olympus a few months prior to the article being published. For context, Olympus was one of the 4 vessels ordered and built in 1860 for the Mediterranean service by the British and Foreign Steam Navigation Company. Olympus had been rebuilt and lengthened in 1872 by Harland and Wolff of Belfast, Ireland, where she was fitted with a third mast and a new compound engine. Following the rebuild, Olympus was used mainly on the Liverpool to Boston service as an immigrant ship. The following is an account that describes Olympus's encounter with a cyclone that occurred on one of these voyages in July of 1873. The Cunard steamship Olympus, which left Boston for England on the 8th of July, encountered a cyclone on the second day out. A passenger describing the scene says, "The ship was put head to the wind as soon as the storm made its appearance. About 2:30 a.m., a heavy pointed sea struck the vessel on the quarter, throwing several tons of water with a terrific force against the saloon, dashing in the side of the saloon, carrying away the forward davit of the quarter boat and some 20 feet of the rail, tearing up and breaking off several of the stanchions of the poop deck railing, and carrying the after binnacle adrift into the lee rail. This large body of water in the saloon made fearful havoc, ripping up tables, settees, and chairs, and tearing away glass racks, side lamps, and other movables, and apparent immovables, and dashing them pell-mell into the lee side of the saloon. Stewards and waiters, asleep in the saloon, were dashed about among the debris of broken chairs, tables, glassware, and crockery, but, fortunately, with the exception of a few cuts and bruises, were unhurt. Meanwhile, the water, checked in its course by the lee side of the saloon, found vent by the companionway and the ventilator into the lower cabin, where the scene for a few moments was very exciting. The passengers, aroused from their slumber by a terrific crash, which was immediately followed by a rush of water into the lower saloon and a shower bath from the ventilator, imagined that the ship had been run into and was not only sinking, but already underwater. It was with the greatest difficulty that the stewards, headed by the purser, who had recovered from their fright and rushed to the passengers' assistance in a somewhat primitive costume, could persuade the ladies that there was no real danger. The noise of the gale overhead, the roll and pitch of the ship, and the constant rush of the water from side to side of the ship were by no means calculated to soothe them. At last, however, some of the passengers and the waiters succeeded in carrying the ladies from the wet staterooms aft to the dry ones forward, where they were wrapped up as well as what few blankets and shawls on hand would do, and then the stewards and what men could be spared from the deck were set to work bailing out the cabin, which took some 3 hours, and by daylight the carpets were all up and on deck, together with the mattresses, bedding, etc. Very fortunately, there were no personal accidents of any account. The third officer, Mr. Pearson, had just left the deck to look at the barometer when the sea struck. Had he been a moment later or earlier, he would probably have been badly injured and perhaps killed. The purser was washed from his bunk, and, together with the chief steward, found himself swimming when he awoke, bruised, but not seriously. Those that were not on duty on deck were below, encouraging and quieting the passengers, which act was accomplished in a most incredibly short time, when it is considered that they were all asleep at the time of the accident. After the excitement was over, the writer went on deck. The sight was a most beautiful one. The sea, owing to rapidly changing winds of the cyclone, was not on furrows, as usual, but presented a series of pointed waves rushing in every direction. The accident was of a nature not to be anticipated.